Welcome to the Global News Podcast on YouTube, where we go behind the headlines. Hello, I'm Janat Jalil, and today we're looking at accusations by 5 Western European countries that Russia poisoned the opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, with a rare lethal toxin that's usually found in one frog species in South America. Mr. Navalny died 2 years ago while incarcerated in a Siberian penal colony at the age of just 47. The Kremlin denies that it killed him. We're joined by our world news correspondent, Joe Inwood. And Joe, what's emerged?
We found out from 5 European intelligence agencies, foreign offices, that they had investigated samples from the body of Alexei Navalny, and they had discovered an incredibly rare and incredibly obscure toxin in those samples. And they say that it's led them to the conclusion that the only possible way that he died was deliberate poisoning, and that deliberate poisoning must have been done by the Russian state.
And there have been accusations in the past that the Russian state has poisoned its critics, but this is a very unusual poison. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so this is a poison that is only found in nature on the back of a poisoned dart frog, a poisoned arrow frog that's found in Latin America. Now, it's called Antony's poison arrow frog. We got that from the Foreign Office. They wouldn't tell us anything else about how they discovered this. But just to explain to listeners, to viewers, that it's a tiny little amphibian. It lives in small areas of jungle in Ecuador, in Peru, and it's about 2 to 3 centimetres long. It's a rather beautiful little creature, as these Ecuadorian or these dart frogs often are. It's got a kind of deep reddish browny kind of back. It's got white stripes. It's got dots all over it. It's got these squat little legs. And the key point here is there is no way that one of these is found in Siberia. This is only found in the jungles of Latin America.
And it only produces this poison in certain circumstances.
Yeah, that's really important. They think that the reason, they don't quite know about with the exact frogs, there's a bit of a mystery here, but they think that there is something in their food that is what leads them to be poisoned. So scientists say there's variations in the severity of the toxin that's produced on these frogs depending on where they are found. And when they're found in captivity, there's no toxin at all. It is astonishingly dangerous. So I think what it is, more than being astonishingly dangerous, it's astonishingly rare. And this kind of, to come back to the point, the only way you find this is either in the jungles there or you can synthesize it. And I think probably what it's assumed is what the Russians would have done, and this is the accusation from the British government, is they synthesized it somewhere and used it, and that's how they killed Alexei Navalny.
Yes, because it would be a lot of effort, wouldn't it, for a Russian spy to go to the jungles of South America to find these frogs and extract the poison. So the suggestion is that this was some kind of state-sponsored lab, because the chemistry involved is so complicated that that's the only way it could be done, according to these 5 Western governments.
Yeah, exactly. According to the statement, so the British Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, was the one that made the statement initially, saying it was only Russia that had basically the motive, the access to Mr. Navalny, and the capabilities to do this. Of course, there isn't 100% proof beyond any reasonable doubt, but they say this is unbelievably strong circumstantial evidence, and that's why they've come to the very definite conclusion they have.
And what has the Kremlin had to say about this latest evidence that's been presented by European nations about this lethal frog toxin?
So, firstly, we should say they've always denied it. They denied at the time that they had killed him. They said he died of heart failure. Now, normally I like to try and memorise quotes before I read them to you, but this one from the Russian embassy in London I am going to have to read out off my phone, because they accuse the West of feeble-mindedness. He said it was the feeble-mindedness of Western fabulists, and they accuse them of necro-propaganda. Now, I'm not entirely sure what that is, but that was the quote from the Russian embassy in London. And Maria Zakharova, who's a prominent government spokesperson, she said that these were the tales and statements they're an information campaign aimed at distracting attention from the West's pressing problem.
And I know this might be a hard question for you to answer, Joe, but why? Why choose this poison of all poisons?
Well, there's 2 questions here. Why kill Mr. Navalny? That's a slightly easier question to answer. We can come on to in a bit. Why use this poison? The speculation is, the suggestion is, firstly, we should say we don't know for certain. It could be that there was some logical reason for it from their point of view. But I think what a lot of people are saying is this sends a message. If you want to, and this is something that Russia has form in, when maybe, and this is all getting a bit dark here, but when there would have been a more straightforward way to murder someone, doing something that really sends a signal, that really says, whether it is gunning down a prominent opposition figure just outside the Kremlin, whether it's using polonium-210 on Alexander Litvinenko, it's thought that they put polonium-210, this highly, highly radioactive substance, on a teacup, or whether, with the Skripals in Salisbury, another high-profile Russian defector or opponent of the government, and they used Novichok, a nerve agent. These are not obvious ways to do things. And so I think the suggestion is that by doing it this way, it sends a signal. And that signal is that the Russian government is capable of doing anything.
And turning to the why, Mr. Navalny, that probably is a lot easier to answer, as you say, because he was a very prominent critic of Vladimir Putin, exposed a lot of corruption in the Russian elite. And he had already been poisoned before. Yeah,
so he also was poisoned, it's thought, with Novichok. That was according to the German hospitals that tested him or looked after him. And that was, I think, in 2020. It left him really fighting for his life. He really clearly knew that he was, if not signing his death warrant, he was very much risking his life when he went back to Russia. And sure enough, he was arrested pretty much straight off the tarmac. I think actually the footage is him coming through passport control, and there are police officers there, they arrest him, and he never saw freedom again.
I mean, I think at the time a lot of people were struck by his bravery because he narrowly survived this assassination attempt with Novichok, and yet he, as you say, decided to go back to Russia. Just tell us about Mr. Navalny and the impact he had on Russia back then and still has today, 2 years on from his death.
Yeah, so he was a focal point for people who wanted to oppose the Kremlin. He, as I said, exposed what the corruption of the regime. There's a very famous video they put out of showing this huge palace that Vladimir Putin had built for himself. It was watched hundreds of millions of times very quickly, and to the huge embarrassment of the Kremlin. And I think he was just seen as a really articulate, and as I said, not without controversy and criticism of him, but from many different sides, but a kind of a powerful opponent of the Kremlin, someone they could rally behind. He is still someone, I think, who has that impact. Of course, it's been lessened. He can't contribute anymore, but it was a really powerful video he made, a documentary, I think it was, that was filmed, obviously, before he died. And he spoke directly to the camera. He said that if they kill me, I think he even said when they kill me, he certainly spoke often about the fact that he was likely to die in prison. He said, all that will do is it will show us that we are strong and you must keep fighting.
And it's no coincidence that European nations chose the Security Conference in Munich this weekend to accuse the Kremlin of killing Mr. Navalny.
Yeah, so the Munich Security Conference that we've just had was nearly 2 years to the day since Mr. Navalny died. And in fact, the day we're recording this is exactly 2 years. Of course, people may be listening later, but we are speaking as it is 2 years to the day. It's worth, I think the reason it was significant is because Yulia Navalnaya, his widow, was at the Munich Security Conference on the day that his death was announced. She spoke on stage, clearly very emotional. She couldn't confirm that it was the case, but she gave her initial reaction. So this is an event which is associated with him and with her. And I think it's no coincidence they picked this time to mention it again or to release these findings because they knew it would have the impact that they've had.
And what are the consequences, if any, likely to be for the Kremlin?
Long answer short, very little. I mean, there's talk of increasing sanctions. There's talk, when we saw the Salisbury poisoning, diplomats who the government's accused of being spies were kicked out of the country. They've talked about referring them to international bodies for the prohibition of chemical weapons. They say it's a breach of that. But in truth, we're already seeing full-scale Western diplomatic action against Russia. If there are more levers they can pull, they'll be pulling them probably because of the war in Ukraine and many, many other reasons that they have to criticise the Russian government. It's difficult to see what really, really impactful kind of consequences or sanctions they could pull, but we will wait and find out.
Joe, thank you. Joe Inwood with us here. And if you like this episode, please subscribe to us here on YouTube. And if there are any other stories you'd like us to cover, just leave a comment below. And if you want more international news, you can always download the Global News Podcast from wherever you get your BBC podcasts.